welcome to Cover Story. Today we are here for a very special conversation. We are here to discuss the life and times of Ratan Tata, a legend and a legacy in his lifetime. And who better to discuss this with than with Suhel Seth, someone who's been a close friend, someone who knows him well, and someone also who's associated with what's happening within the Tata Trust. Joining me on the show is Suhel. Suhel, at the outset, I would really like to offer my condolences because one knows how close you are to him. So many anecdotes one has heard from you about him time to time. So it is a personal loss for you also.
It's a terrible loss. It's a loss for me. It's a loss for India. As I said yesterday to someone, it's a loss for humanity. They will never make another Ratan Tata. No one. No God is capable of making another Ratan Tata. No God is capable of making a human being who was so multidimensional, so brilliant, so talented, and yet so humane, so rooted, so not privileged. I mean, he came from a life of massive privilege, but he lived his life like a monk. It was almost monastic in the manner he lived, the way he served his people, the way he built the Tata Group. You know, remember, Priya, when he took over, the market cap of the group was $5.1 billion. And when he demitted office on December 28, 2012, that became $101.8 billion. I mean, this kind of growth has never been seen. What was also never imagined was that he took India abroad. He made Indians proud. You know, when you go to New York and see the Indian flag fluttering at the pier, or when you go to Campton Place in San Francisco, or Buckingham Gate in London, when you drive a Jaguar Land Rover, I once said, and I actually haven't said it before, I mean, in this manner, but can you imagine? You wake up in the morning at a Taj Hotel, you sip Tata tea, you get into a Range Rover, you reach the airport, and you fly Air India. And on the way, you've brushed your teeth, you've had sampan ka khana, I mean, every which way the Tatas had touched our lives and continue to touch our lives.
Before Sohail, we go into the different ways and his aspects of his life story. I want to know first, how did you meet with him, and what was your first meeting, and how did that happen?
So I first met him in 1990 when, I mean, I don't think even you were born. So this was what, 34 years ago. And I met him in Jamshedpur. I was a lowly management trainee at Ogilvy. And what had happened was I had become a very close friend of Rusi Modi's. I can't say close friend, but I was very fond of Rusi Modi and he was of me. Rusi Modi at that time was the chairman of Tata Steel. And Rusi was one of those gigantic, larger than life human beings. You know, he was like the emperor of Jamshedpur. And when his birthday on January 17 every year it was celebrated like the Republic Day. It was a parade and goats were sacrificed. I mean, it was insane. And then one day there was a meeting. And there was JRD, there was RNT, Mr. Tata, and there was Rusi and Aditya Kashyap. Now, it's so tragic. All four are dead. Huh? All four have gone. So we were talking about something, and I made a comment, and Mr. Tata, Ratan, said, no, but why should we say we make great steel? So I said, hang on, I'll come to you in a minute. Evening, there was a dinner at Rusi Modi's house, and he says, you know who you stopped? I said, no. He says, Ratan. I said, why the hell didn't you tell me? So he said, nay, 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 and it was all laughter. Then Mr. Tata was appointed chairman Tata Sons by JRD. Mr. Tata saw that there was a group that was run like a confederation. You know, it was almost Abraham Lincoln-like. Each Satra was powerful. Each did his own thing. They didn't care about, the unification of the Tata group. And then Ratan Tata started about unifying the group. And he made sure that all the satraps fell in line. He then introduced a retirement age, because remember, in those days, there was no retirement age. Rusi Modi could have continued till he was dead. But Tata said this can't happen because how do we generate newer people, fresh blood, infusion, blah, blah, blah. So Mr. Tata then introduced the retirement age of 75. Rusi was already 72 in 73 in 1990. He turned 75 in 1993. And on January 17, 1993, Rusi Modi's birthday party had shrunk to about 7 people. I was one of them in his house that night. So was Jay Panda, because
Oh.
Jay Panda's father, Bansiji, was a great pal of Rusi's. But Bansi, for some reason, couldn't travel to Jamshedpur from Bhubaneswar. Jay
Hmm.
Panda was there. And
Oh.
Rusi played the piano, but he was obviously forlorn because the next day he was going. Then this mega fight erupted between Rusi Modi and Ratan Tata. If you remember, Rusi Modi, said things, but Mr. Tata kept being totally adroit. He kept his cool. He was very clear that he had to follow process with purpose. It wasn't about, being vicious or vitriolic, blah, blah, blah. One after the other, the satraps were replaced. The only guy who tried to create issues because his retirement age was still far away was Ajit Kerkar of the Indian Hotels. But then they discovered that there were some foreign exchange violations on Ajit Kerkar's part. So he too went. Then Mr. Tata embarked on a massive restructuring, rebranding exercise. And that's how the new logo came. So Tata Iron and Steel Company, or Tata Electric Locomotive Telco, became Tata Motors, Tisco became Tata Steel. That's how the whole process of rebranding, re-engineering, recalibrating the house of Tata began. But I was Rusi's friend. And I was deeply upset about what happened. And as is my wont, I wrote one or two, maybe two or three vicious pieces against Mr. Tata, like really vicious, saying that, you know, there must be a certain amount of gratitude. These people have built businesses, blah, 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 blah. Mr. Tata said nothing to me. It was as if nothing had happened. Time went by, we were always in touch. Mr. Muthuraman, B. Muthuraman, then became the MD. He succeeded Jamshed Irani as the managing director of Tata Steel. Muthu one day tells me, he says, so all my career, Priya, I used to spend hours in Jamshedpur. I would go to the plant. I would enjoy the general office. I would have lunch with workers, if time permitted. But it was a great experience for me. And in 1990, I was 27 years old. So at 27, hanging out with the Rusi Modis of the world. Then between 1990 and 93, another very, very close friend of mine was R.K. Lakshman, the cartoonist. So I took Lakshman with me to Jamshedpur, and Mr. Modi made him then do an entire exhibition, which, by the way, the drawings of those are today at the Rusi Modi Center for Excellence in Jamshedpur. So time went by. Then Muthuraman told me, he says, you haven't come back to Jamshedpur for so long. By 1993, I had left advertising. I joined IDC Classic. I was in finance. There was no. So when Muthu became the MD, Muthuraman said, he says, come to Jamshedpur. And then I went to Jamshedpur almost after 12 years or 10 years. And I saw a transformation like I hadn't imagined. And in those days, I used to write for Asian Age, and I wrote a piece saying Jamshedpur is the only place where India is shining. Because remember, 1999, Babji Vajpayee ji took over. And then this whole India being, whatever, whatever, whatever. In 2004, if you remember, by 2003, 2004, they started India shining. So I said, the only place where India is actually shining is Jamshedpur.
Yeah.
And I don't know where the hell that letter is. It should be with me. Mr. Tata read the article, by which time Jamshed Irani had got onto the Tata Sons board. And Mr. Tata read the article and he wrote me the most compelling handwritten note. In those days, he would handwrite all his letters. And I was like heartbroken, overwhelmed, and I called him up and then we resumed our journey together. And one day he tells me, he says, come to Bombay House for lunch. I said, okay, you meet me in the evening. He used to stay in an apartment in a building called Bakhtawar near Kolaba Post Office. So I met him, and then things remained exactly where we left them. In 2006, I decided I would give up advertising and retire because, I wasn't interested. Advertising had gone through a deep decline, and I was frankly bored of advertising. So I was sitting in the main Taj in Bombay, the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel, smoking a long ass cigar when Mr. Tata and Krishna Kumar walked out from the chambers to their cars. And Mr. Tata saw me. He says, "What a ridiculous email have you sent?" I sent an email saying that, I'm retiring and it'll be great. It was great working with you, blah, blah, blah. Then I get a call from Mr. Tata, come to Bombay House. What do you want to do? I said, I'm only in shorts and a t-shirt. So how can I enter Bombay House? Because I retired. So he says, okay, Krishna will meet you, Mr. Krishna Kumar, who again was an outstanding human being, truly outstanding. Then Mr. Krishna Kumar met me and he says, what do you want to do? I said, I want to start a consulting firm, but I want to charge 4 times that of McKinsey, but I want to give real strategic advice. So he says, why don't you start uh, with Indian Hotels, with Taj, and with Tata Steel? That's how Counselage was born. So in many ways, Ratan Tata was the parent of Counselage. And when Counselage was born, so I took a flight back from Bombay to come to Delhi. And on the way, Oshim Ghosh met me, who used to run Hutch. He said, do some work for us. Then I went to Hong Kong, met Susan Chow, who was working with Lee Ka-shing for Hutchison. I mean, it's a whirlwind life. And then again, my working relationship with the Tatas began. And it was great. In 2012, December 28, Mr. Tata demitted office because he followed his own rule. 75, I'm out. And I still remember Cyrus Mistry, who had taken over as chairman, telling Mr. Tata that Suhel has given a very vicious interview to the Financial Times where he has said that he's not sure about how the group will be under Cyrus Mistry because he comes from a contractor background, which is true. I said, my worry is that Cyrus Mistry will sell the group down the river because he's a contractor. These guys have no ethics. I mean, partly. So obviously, the shit hit the fan. I then told Mr. Tata, I said, I'm co-terminus in the Tata group as a consultant with you. But I saw the anguish starting 2013. Mr. Tata was not anguished because, see, he had selected Cyrus. He was the one. They had interviewed 4 people, and Cyrus Mistry was also on the selection panel. So Cyrus had to recuse himself. In fact, in 2011, when they made the announcement in the evening. I was in Paris at Mr. Tata's behest to meet Serge Dassault, the Rafale Dassault. But it was not for the fighter jet, it was for their private jet company called Falcon, a brand called Falcon. And Mr. Tata called me saying, listen, before you get to know from the media, we've decided on Cyrus Mistry. At that time, I said, big mistake. And I hung up because I was entering Serge Dassault's, chateau on Champs-Élysées. And obviously, I saw the continuing pain, and I would meet R&T ever so often. And we all saw, his closest friend was Melli Mistry, who also is like a very, very dear friend. I saw the pain in both their eyes, but Melli is the first cousin of Cyrus. All the rubbish that was written later, that Melli or Suhel or Venkat, it was all utter rubbish. 2012 to 2016, October 24, Mr. Tata never entered Bombay House, even though he was chairman emeritus, even though he was a permanent invitee to every board meeting. So when people tell you that he didn't allow Cyrus to work, it's all rubbish. He gave Cyrus a free hand, but things began to go awry. Why? There were related party transactions. There was the hegemony of the group executive committee. He didn't renounce his Irish citizenship. There were many issues. In fact, so much so, if I remember right, Mr. Krishna Kumar reached out to Cyrus because by then KK had retired. He was on Tata Trust saying that, sort these things out. October 24, 2016 at 12:30, Mr. Tata went to Bombay House with Nitin Noria, who was a Tata Sons director. And he went to Cyrus's office and says, look, We think you should offer to resign because the board has lost confidence in you. Cyrus looked up. He says, I will discuss this at the meeting and I will fight. At the meeting, Tata Sons board meeting, the board expressed no confidence in him and they asked Ratan Tata to step in as interim chairman, to which Ratan Tata agreed, but he said only for 6 months. This is on October 24, 2016. On January 10, 2017, Chandras- N. Chandrasekharan, who we all fondly call Chandra, was appointed. And Chandra said, I will only take over in February. I think it was February 12, he finally took over. So Mr. Tata didn't even stay in office for more than 2 months. So all this bunkam ki bhai, he wanted to rest power back and, he was missing, it's all bullshit. Then what
Okay.
started was Cyrus started, and I know for a fact, Mr. Tata has never admitted it. Mr. Tata has never spoken about it. In fact, Mr. Tata's last conversation was with me on television for CNBC and CNN. Even there, we did not utter the word Cyrus or mystery. So this continued, blah, blah, blah. But it took a toll on his health because Cyrus made unfounded personal vile attacks on everyone. Me, Mr. Tata, Venkat. I mean, it was unseemly. But he's also gone. There's no point, talking about it. And then one got to spend even more time because Mr. Tata was very happy and relieved that the group was now under the leadership of N. Chandrasekharan. And Chandra is a very decent guy. He is, to my mind, Chandra is the perfect Tata chairman, Tata Sons chairman. Low key, works very hard, very strategic, does not interfere with day to day stuff, and is driving it through vision. Again, that is evident. Look at the market cap of the House of Tata today, over 200 billion. So things did work. So one day I told Mr. Tata, I said, your only big mistake was Cyrus Mistry. He never responded. I hoped that he would talk about it or, because we were pals, not at all. That was his innate decency. He never once spoke ill about Cyrus to anyone. He never spoke ill about people who had harmed him. He never spoke ill about government ministers who he knew had succumbed to lobbies preventing Tata and Singapore Airlines in the good old days from joining hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. People who were lobbying against Tata Singapore Airlines, and I'll name them, were people like Naresh Goyal. Where is karma? But Ratan Tata stayed the course, steered the group, and continued to be the Bhisham Pitama. Which is why when Chandra sent out that statement day before, on October 9 at 11:24, he said that for me, Ratan Tata was not only a mentor and a guide, but also a friend. That was the uniqueness of Ratan Tata. His humility, his ability to come down to the base level of humanity, to care for what you and I would never even, it wouldn't even come to our minds. I mean, who would call up the CEO of Indian Hotels and say that the guard who held up an umbrella in pelting rain above that dog must be commended? Don't do these things. Who spends agonizing time over Tata Trust? Who spent time over deciding how the small animal hospital would be fitted out? Ratan Tata. That's why he's different. That's why he's unique.
So now about the Tata Group, really, Suhel. What is the way ahead? We have N. Chandrasekhar looking after maybe the day to day, but is he going to be there? Or is Noel Tata coming in? What is happening?
No, see, there is a very clear distinction which Ratan Tata made in his lifetime.
Hmm.
The Tata Sons chairman can never be the chairman of Tata Trust. And the Tata Trust chairman can never be the chairman of Tata Sons. So there is a separation between church and state. So let me give you in a broad way, just for your viewers to understand in simple terms. 66% of the shares of Tata Sons, which is the holding company of the Tata Group, 66% of those shares are owned by by Tata Trust. So, in a way, the chairman of Tata Trust is the custodian of the value that accrues to Tata Sons. In simple terms, 66% of the dividend portfolio, let's say 100 रुपए का dividend निकला, 100 rupees. If the dividend is 100 rupees, 66 rupees go to Tata Trust. But that entire 66 goes to the people of India. It goes in terms of, so it can range from 700 crores to 900 crores, depending on the year. So can you imagine the Tata Trust has used that money for almost 127 years now, because the Tata Group would be 157 years today. So Tata Group is 157. Tata's Trust would be about 128 or 29 years old. So for 129 years, everything that they have made from Tata Sons has gone back to the people, which means what? It means cancer centers where there was no hope, Indian Institute of Science, Tata Institute of Social Sciences. I mean, you look at the breadth of work, their partnership on water, on healthcare, on knowledge. They did a fantastic partnership with Google called Internet Sathi, in order to penetrate villages and enable women to use a digital platform for their own lives. Then animal welfare. The small animal hospital, which opened earlier this year, is again a tribute to the fact that where would these animals go? There was no one to take care of them. And this is a large sum of money. And I'm not even mentioning, Priya, what Ratan Tata and the Tata Trust used to and continue to do in terms of disaster management. So what I feel is it'll be Noel Tata as the chairman of Tata Trust and N. Chandrasekaran as chairman Tata Sons. And I think it's brilliant. Why? Noel Tata is an innately decent human being. Ratan's half brother, same father, different mother. Noel is a Tata, will look after the Tata Trust, and N. Chandrasekaran will look after, as he's done so wonderfully well, of Tata Sons. So, in a manner of speaking, it is perhaps the most unique partnership which Ratan Tata enabled by creating the separation of church from state.
But is this what he also wanted? Because there's a lot of speculation that he didn't leave behind a roadmap or anything.
That is utter rubbish. See, half the problem is the jokers who know nothing are the ones who are now commenting. This is all utter rubbish. Melli is on the trust. He should become a permanent trustee. Jahangir, Pramit Javed, there are so many. Darius Khambata. Ratan was the chair. Venu Srinivasan, Vijay Singh. So I don't, a lot of people conjecture, Arey, ab kya hoga, ab kya. It was all set in motion. And I'm sure things will remain as they are in the sense, see, the Tata group is not a group of halchal. It's not a tapodi group, where they'll be fighting and this and that. There's too much of civility. There's too much of elegance. The only years where we were worried about the value system getting messed up was the years between 2012, December 28, and October 24, 2016. That is the most turbulent period that the group ever faced. But again, look at the greatness of Ratan Tata. Not once did he mention it. On October 25, 2016, Cyrus Mistry sent a 9-page letter to the media. How could he have done a 9-page letter with data points which are all rubbish in any case? It was all planned. So there was an attempt to malign the group, but who vindicated Ratan Tata? The Supreme Court of India. Criminal defamation cases were filed which were dismissed. Ratan Tata could have, and please remember, I've written about it and I've told you this. I was at having a meal with Narendra Modi in Gandhinagar in September 2008. He told me, he says, Kal kahan jana? I said, Bombay, Arey, Tata Sahab ko boliye, Nano yahan le aaye, because by then we were out of Singur.
Right.
That's how Nano began. So the relationship that he and Narendra Modi shared was remarkable.
That's
So see, people don't know this. People are conjecturing, Arey yaar, ye kya ho gaya? Arey yaar, wo kya ho gaya?
Okay, one last question. Is this also he was one of the last few philanthropic businessmen, maybe there's Azim Premji, Nandan Nilekani, but most of, the legacy that, I think that's one thing that really stands out in his legacy. Uh,
Yes, but let me tell you,
yeah.
it was the inspiration behind philanthropy.
Tell
Look
me.
at the tribute that Mukesh and Nita Ambani paid. Today, all said and done, Reliance Foundation is spending almost 5 to 600 crores. पर अब लोगों को पता नहीं, because Mukesh always used to say and continue to say, अरे नेकी कर कुएं में डाल. But what I used to, I'll give you an example. Even when Mr. Tata's Twitter account began, I still remember R. Venkat calling me saying, R&T's just got onto Twitter, you retweet.
Hmm.
Something like that. Point I'm making, Priya, is that he has created an inspiring tonality for philanthropy. I don't think philanthropy will go out. And please remember, we may hate him for his misogyny, but Manu, in Manu Smriti, talks about Dan 3,800 years ago, which now the Warren Buffetts and all are trying to teach us.
Fair enough, but we're, in terms of, as you said, it's what is there in the optics was, when you talk about Ratan Tata, you talk about elegance, you talk about decency, you talk about a good human being at the end of the day. But he's had his ups, but he's also had his downs. When you spoke about the nano car, one personal scandal was the Radia one. How did he take that? Because he just went into silence. He was, as you said, he took it the matter of the courts and he was exonerated. But personally, how did he? Because that group has never been accused of doing the kind of things that were coming
Can I
out.
tell you? I mean, it's not my place to say this.
Hmm.
I will never believe, not because I was close to him, I will never believe that Ratan Tata knew what was actually going on in that area. Ratan Tata could not have told person X or person Y ki ye karo ya wo karo ya ye karo. He was not that kind of person. See, you have to understand, he led his life through a severe moral compass. Now, a lot of people who are acting on his behalf will say, ki, bhai, Mr. Tata wants this. But that doesn't mean that Ratan Tata actually has believed in it or knows about it, which is why, again, he took it to court. See, he was very logical and principled. He says, if I've done something wrong, let the courts investigate. And that's exactly what happened.
That's true. And gave him a clean chit. But thank you, Suhail, for this conversation. And I was going to, end by saying end of an era, but after hearing you talk, I think there is a continuity of that era, maybe with Noel and Chandra. Let's see.
And
Uh,
it's even a continuity of an era with Ratan's passing, because he may have left this planet, but he will never leave our hearts, he will never leave our minds, and the imprint of his work will actually provide hope, succor, and relief to generations to come.
on that note, Suhail said, thank you so much for coming and sharing with
Thank you.
us. Thanks a lot.